Welcome back. Last we spoke, we had just synced 2 forests into 1 tenant. We did it without a trust in place, but I've gone ahead and put the trusts in place now because we're going to do some AD consolidation, moving the users from bbco.local into the aaco.local forest, and we're actually going to use Azure AAD Connect to soft match the users to their tenant account once they move, matching them on their ms-ds-consistencyGUID. That was why we set up that ms-ds-consistencyGUID in the previous video. So let's just take a look at the environment. Like I said, 2 forests, bbco.local, aaco.local, all synced up into 1 tenant. And let's just check that tenant there. Yeah, we can see aaco users and bbco users together all in the same place. We can go check and look at how sync is running. We can see sync is running just fine, syncing both forests into a single tenant and writing back whatever exchange attributes, etc. So, bbco, the domain controller's Phoenix DC1. There's all my bbco users. They're in the sync OU in this forest, in this domain. What we're going to do is we're going to migrate them using Active Directory migration tool. And we're going to place them in, the first step is to place them in the no sync OU in the target domain. If you remember, we did not select no sync for the sync scope. So we can move objects into this OU, but they won't be synced to Office 365 and Azure. Later on, when we're ready to perform the soft match, we'll move the users from the source forest out of the sync scope into no sync, and move the new users in the target from no sync into sync, and then we'll run sync, and that will perform the soft match. So it's a pretty action-packed adventure. I think you'll look forward to seeing it. I want to just demonstrate real quick here what it looks like when we're checking the GUIDs and the ms-ds-consistencyGUID against the immutable ID in the cloud. But before I do that, I realized I set up to show you the trusts are in place. So here I am in aaco, and I'm showing there's a 2-way trust with bbco, and we can see SID history and SID filtering. SID history is enabled and SID filtering is disabled. That's a good thing. Same thing coming the other way here, aaco.local, 2-way trust. So we've got the SID history, SID filtering in place so that we can move objects between the forest and carry over that SID history. Of course, when you get done with all of this, you want to do the SID history to SID translation on all your resources. Otherwise, you'll be relying on SID history to access all of your resources in the end, and that can get ugly in the long run. So when we use the Active Directory migration tool in this particular demo, we're just going to target 1 user, and you can see I've built out an include file. The source name is bbco user1, the target SAM is bbco user1, and we're going to change the target UPN from bbco user1 at bbco.online to bbco.user1 at aaco.online, because he's going to be in the aaco forest and he needs his UPN to match that forest. So then when he logs into Office 365 and Azure, he's going to change his login to aaco.online, but we'll have already soft matched him with sync. So as you can see, I log in with bbco today and get my mailbox, etc., and then I log in tomorrow as aaco and get my mailbox, etc., and it's that soft match that we do in sync that makes all of that work. So we're going to look at the bbco user 1 GUID, ms-ds-consistencyGUID, and immutable ID right now. Okay, so we have this little script here to get the user's ms-ds-consistencyGUID, their object GUID from local Active Directory. When you're dealing with GUIDs, there's a lot of this system convert to base 64 string and GUID specification stuff. You got to kind of toy around with it to get the right answers. But basically what we're going to see is the user principal name is going to come out with their GUID, with their ms-ds-consistencyGUID, and their immutable ID are all going to be in the same format, so we can compare them and see just what the user looks like. So here we go. So that's checking AD, and that's checking up in the cloud. You can see I've already connected to Azure AD. I'm using the Azure AD PowerShell plugin there. And so we get our answer. There's BBCO user 1, BBCO online. And you can see his object GUID matches his ms-ds-consistencyGUID. And that's because this user is the same user in the same forest at this point. When we move this user to aaco.local, his object GUID's going to change, and then we would not be able to match him up to his mailbox or his other resources in Office 365. So that's why we've populated the ms-ds-consistencyGUID. And you can see that matches the immutable ID in the cloud. So we're ready to migrate this user and do a soft match. So as we indicated, we're going to use Active Directory migration tool to migrate BBCO user 1 from the BBCO forest to the AACO forest. We want to make sure he moves from the sync OU in BBCO to the no sync OU in AACO, because we don't want both objects syncing to the cloud at the same time with the same ms-ds-consistencyGUID. Later on, we'll do the soft match. So let's go ahead and get started with the migration. New user account migration. Okay, configuring it. Source domains, BBCO, target domains, AACO. We're going to use the include file that we have prepared there. There it is. Sounds good. And see here, we specify the target OU is no sync in the user objects in AACO, so that's good. We're going to go ahead and migrate the passwords. I installed the password migration service, etc. That just makes it easy for the user to log in both in their old domain and their new domain if necessary. We're not going to disable the source or the target account because we don't want to disrupt the user while they're operating in the source domain right now. Later on, when they go to log into Office 365 as an AACO online user, then we can go back and do the cleanup. We're just really concerning ourselves with the soft match in Azure and Office 365 right now. We're not going to exclude any specific attributes at this point. Shouldn't be any conflicts. Okay, there's ADMT moving that user along there. Just take a minute or two. Obviously, if you had a longer include file, it would take a lot longer as it processes each user. The include file is the way to go, especially if you want to do like renames or changing the UPN suffixes, etc. Okay, we can see the process is completed. We can view the log if we feel so inclined. We can see everything. Yeah, password copied, SID to SID history, etc. We're not going to get into the full finesse of doing an Active Directory domain migration. That might be a good topic for another video. Let me know if you're interested in that. So obviously BBCO 1's still here in the BBCO domain. And let's go look. Do a little refresh there. Okay, there he is in the no sync. So now we're ready to do the soft match. Now the soft match, we want to make sure, first of all, we'll just go ahead and do a sync for kicks. But during the soft match, what you don't want to do is have sync running. So as soon as this sync is done, we're going to go ahead and disable the sync scheduler while we move this user in and out of the scope of sync. One of the things I wanted to point out is because we installed sync first in AACO, then we added BBCO later on, these run actually in an order. We're going to manually run the sync steps. And the reason why is if we run AACO local first, it's going to add the user because we've added the new user to the scope of sync. And then the BBCO user is going to try to sync, and we're going to get a sync conflict. It's just going to be really messy. So we're going to have to manually run these import and sync steps in the correct order, deleting them from BBCO first, and then adding them to AACO second. Do your cloud import, do your syncs, and then do your export to the cloud, and then do your exports to AD. Okay, so that sync's done. I'm going to go ahead and disable the sync scheduler. There we go. Set AD sync scheduler, sync cycle enabled to false. We're going to do all of our work right here on the sync server because that's where the soft match action happens. Obviously, you could script this. I would recommend that heartily to use PowerShell. And you can run PowerShell against your same include file. You can build your scripts to utilize the include files to move those users in and out of scope and Active Directory. All right, so we got 2 Active Directory windows open. I'm going to change the focus on one to BBCO. Let's go find our user and move him out of the scope of sync. So there's our BBCO user 1. We're going to move him to the null sync OU. Definitely see where scripting would make this a lot easier. We go to AACO, find that BBCO user that we just migrated. He's in the null sync OU. Now we're going to move him into the scope of sync by moving him into the sync folder. All right, let's just double check our work. There he is. I'm going to just double check our work again. Let's make sure he changed the user principal name suffix. Yeah, that looks good. So as he moves across from one domain to the other, he'll be able to log into the new domain with his AACO online UPN, user principal name. So we're ready to do the soft match. You can see how it's easy to do all this work right on the sync server. You can run all your scripts, do all your checks in Active Directory. Then you can do your soft match. And so here we go. I'm going to run the BBCO Delta import first. Okay, there's our Delta import. It's done. What we should see is we should see a delete. And it should delete BBCO1 out of the scope of sync. There we go. That's exactly what we wanted to see. So now we're going to do the Delta import for AACO. Go back and watch sync happen. We should see an add. Oh goodness, there we go. We deleted one, added the other. We can even go in and look at the properties of this user. And of course, the big one we're interested in is the ms-ds-consistencyGUID. We're bringing this new user in, but it's the same old user. We're matching him to his Azure Office 365 identity based on the ms-ds-consistencyGUID. So now we're going to do the Delta import of the cloud. Oh, okay. So now we're going to do our sync steps for each of these. We'll sync BBCO local first. Sync AACO. Okay, so all of our sync profiles have run. Now we're going to do our export to the cloud first. This is probably going to show up as a rename. It'll be interesting to see. We deleted one, added the other. Exports in progress. Oh, there's an update. Okay, so updated. It updated. Oh, Lordy, we're pushing these machines to the limit here. So updated user principal name. Oh, yeah, I see where this is going. During that Office 365 export, you might actually see an error saying you can't change the user principal name suffix and you have to manually run a script to change the old UPN to the new UPN. We're just going to finish running our export step. First of all, let's take a look at our user in this state now. So remember, we had those scripts to look at the user state. So we're going to check BBCO user at bbco.com and look at his state. So we're going to get BBCO GUIDs. BBCO user at 1 at bbco.online. Let's see what happens. Oh, see, look at that. He lost his immutable ID. That's because we deleted him from the cloud. So BBCO user remains intact in the BBCO forest with his object GUID and his ms-ds-consistencyGUID remaining as they were before, but he has no immutable ID because he's no longer in the cloud. So now let's check the situation in AACO where we moved him to and did the soft match. AACO GUIDs, AACO online. Remembering we changed his UPN suffix, we should get an interesting answer here. Okay, so look, see, we can see his object GUID changed because he moved between forests. Okay, but his ms-ds-consistencyGUID remains the same, and his immutable ID matches his ms-ds-consistencyGUID, which means if we were to log into Azure AD, Okay, so we've logged into Azure AD. Let's go find our BBCO user that we just soft matched. So obviously his first dot last name didn't change, but look at that, his UPN suffix changed. We can clearly see he went from BBCO online, now he's an AACO online user. Okay, so mission accomplished. We moved a BBCO user to AACO and soft matched him using his ms-ds-consistencyGUID in the AACO Azure AD Office 365 tenant. Thank you very much.